Now, Steve Nass did a great job in the state assembly. I think you agree with that, don't you? And when he gets to the state senate, you see this barrel of hot coals sitting over here? That's what the Democrats are going to be sitting on when Steve Nass is done with them in the Wisconsin State Senate. Now, we had a lot of legislators who went through Act 10, and I can't praise them enough, because nobody runs for office thinking that their family's going to get harassed, and they're going to get harassed, and their staff's going to get harassed, and they'll be called names and all that. So that was unnecessary for any legislator who stood up to what was going on over at the state capitol. But for the folks who ran afterwards, eyes open, knowing very well that could happen again, and be legislators and be part of a team that has helped the governor move this state forward, takes a step of bravery as well. I now want to introduce Representative Dave Craig.
Hey everybody. Well, Mukwonago. Great to be back in Mukwonago. I had the great pleasure and honor of representing this area for 2 years until redistricting, and I lost Mukwonago. But thank you so much for coming to Mukwonago, the place of the bear, the home of the Mukwonago Indians. And on November 4th, let me talk to my friends here in Mukwonago. On November 4th, remember who helped save the Mukwonago Indian and put Steve Nass in the state senate. Yeah. Steve has been a great conservative, one of the conservative leaders in the legislature, and we need him in that state senate badly. And while you're at it, on November 4th, replace him in the state assembly with a great conservative, Cody Horlacher. Great guy, great conservative. He'll serve Mukwonago very well. Well, we are here with some important work to do over these next 10 days. Extremely important work. 4 years ago, we took up arms and made sure that we put a Republican majority in the legislature and a Republican in the governor's mansion. And we've got to do that again this time around. The consequences of not doing it are too severe. Just imagine what happens if we don't get out from this rally and go to our victory centers, talk to your neighbors, do all the things that's required to make it through this election. Governor Burke. Governor Burke. We know from what she has said, and she hasn't said a whole lot of substance. We know what she's said. She'll do things like repeal Act 10. We know she'll dramatically increase spending in the state. She'll roll back most of the good reforms that we've done, imperiling our Second Amendment rights. All the things that we've done to improve education in the state of Wisconsin, and all the other important pieces of legislation, whether it be the mining bill, voter ID, concealed carry, down and down the list you go, those will all be imperiled by having Governor Burke. Are you ready to have that happen? No! Absolutely not. Well, let's picture another thing. Let's picture a Democrat Attorney General, the chief law enforcement officer of this state, hell-bent on making sure that those reforms that we worked so hard 4 years ago, through your work in getting Republican legislators in majority in the legislature and in the governor's mansion, or an attorney general that would be hell-bent on fighting those in court. Imagine that. Imagine it. That's why it's so important that we get to the polls, and when you're marking the ballot, you mark it for Governor Walker, Lieutenant Governor Clayfish, and Brad Schimel for Attorney General. We've got a lot of work to do. A lot of work. 10 days to do it. And it's going to require all of us talking to our spheres of influence, your neighbors, your relatives, everyone. We need to own this election like we owned the election in 2010. We need to own this election like we owned the recall election. How many of you went out and knocked on doors and made phone calls and made donations and all the other things that are required to do to win? There's going to be a lot of hands shooting up here. Let's own it like we owned 2012. Let's own it like we owned 2010. Let's get the governor back in office. we got a lot of reforms in the legislature that we need to work on. But we need strong majorities in the Assembly. We need strong majorities in the Senate. We need the governor back in his chair and an attorney general that's going to be willing to defend things like continuing our positive reforms, like Act 10, making sure our Second Amendment is protected, making sure environmental issues that are being thrust on us by the EPA, that we're defending our rights as a state from groups like the EPA, from the IRS, shielding the federal government, shielding us from our federal government. These are important functions of state government, and we need to make sure that we do that. We need to make sure that we do that come November 4th. So we're going to cut your taxes again. We're going to work hard to cut spending in Madison. It's not an easy task, but we're going to work hard at it. We're going to make sure, we're going to make darn sure that we have a voter ID law come next election, for Pete's sake. We're going to do all those great fiscal reforms that we'll be able to do when we return to Madison in January, when we swear our oaths and get to work in the legislature. And doggone it, next session, we are going to put on the scrap heap the Government Accountability Board. So are all those things worth your sweat, your tears sometimes, the tread off your shoes, and you getting a little bit uncomfortable and talking to your friends, family, relatives, neighbors about how important this election is and making sure our governor is returned to office? Are you willing to do that? Is that worth that sacrifice? Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, my friends, as a member of the legislature, I can't hardly wait to hear those vuvuzelas, those plastic horns, silenced once and for all. The screaming in the Capitol, the stink of liberalism in Madison. I can't wait for it to be gone. And we're going to do that on November 4th with your help. Please get out and help us. Thank you so much.